Let me just do a quick shot. Just people smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay, good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me just do a quick save. Okay, done. Okay, let's get started. Yeah. Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our live show again. It's another Saturday. Thank you so much for tuning in to our live talk on this beautiful Saturday night. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Michael, and we have Howard over there. Howard.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Howard. Yeah, so we both will be your hosts for tonight. So what we have tonight is Mr. Robin Lee. Yep, I'm sure you guys remember Robin. He actually shared with us before his landscape works last couple of weeks, I believe, or like a month ago. Yep. So tonight, I think he's kind enough to share with us again, some of the tips and advice for those who wanted to begin or start venture into wildlife photographies. Yeah. So Robin has been traveled to many countries in the world, shooting wildlife. I think his passion in wildlife photography brought him to places like United States, United Kingdom, Iceland, and many more other countries. Yeah. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Robin to share his beautiful works. Over to you, Robin.
Michael, thank you very much for having me. I'm Robin. I'm currently residing in the UK. Thanks for joining us. All right, without further ado, let me share my screen.
Yep. So if you guys have any questions while waiting for Robin to share his screen, there are two ways of posting a questions. One way is through our chat groups. In Google Meet, we do have a chat groups, so you guys can actually type a question there. Either myself or Howard will monitor the chat and we will read out to Robin. Or you could actually interrupt Robin by unmute yourself. Yeah. Okay.
Just hang on a second. Tab. This one.
Yes.
Right, can you guys see my screen now?
Yeah.
Yep. All good.
Yeah. All right. Good. Okay. I'm just going to do introduction to the wildlife photography, and I'm basically going to explain like how do I get into the wildlife photography. So let's look at the agenda. The first one is how do I get into wildlife addiction? What sort of equipment that I started when I first photographing, let's say, birds. And then I will talk about my usual camera setup and then the camera settings on the field. Probably I suggest some places to start photographing. And then obviously we all have our budgets, and then I'll talk about a bit of that as well. Compositions, common mistakes that I normally see in wildlife photography. And then I'm going to talk about, try something different than the normal photos that you see on the internet or Instagram or wherever. Right, let's start with the first one. How do I get addicted to wildlife photography? So there's one year in 2010, early summer, I went for a long weekend holiday break in Isle of Man up in Scotland. So, and then we went to this charter boat. We went out to this little islets called Thrashing Isles. It's uninhabited little islets. And at the time, I hired a Canon 100 to 400 mil. I use it with my old Canon 5D Mark I. And the trigger point is the Atlantic puffin. The bird is literally just 2 feet away from me. And this is the result of it. So this is how I get addicted, because they're so colorful. If you look at the bigs, the reason for the color is their breeding season in the UK. So they are migrant birds, and in the winter time they migrate to, and I think it's in South Africa. So you're talking about what, 6,000 to 8,000 miles away. Okay, so the island, if you're interested, is somewhere around here. So this is Isle of Man on the right-hand side of it. I went there for a short holiday, and I took a charter boat into this where I drew the circle here, the trash house they call it. So that's how I get started. And then let's go to the next slide. So when I get addicted to it, and then you start to learn about what sort of bird species that you want to photograph, what's their life cycle, are they migrant species or are they local, when they usually arrive, where's the breeding ground, what's their habitat, what's their behavior, are they skittish? Skittish means are they scared of humans or are they pretty much friendly, and then where's the best place to see them and ultimately photograph them. Ultimately, further on down the line, you start to learn from experience of co-photographer from your local talks or local photography group, or you could attend the workshop. You could hire a bird hire. I'm not sure whether you do that in Malaysia, but it's quite popular over in the UK and around Europe, and also in United States as well. Or you can even watch YouTube, the wildlife photographers, whoever that you fancy. You could just watch them and see what they do, or even follow the photographers, the wildlife photographers in social media for inspiration. Say, for example. Right. So the next one is when I started, what sort of equipment that I have. So I started with the Canon 5D, which I sold now, where I put it a little note with a bracket there. The 24-105, 70 to 200 f4, and then I got myself a 500 f4, which is the version 1. I think it's 15 or 16 years old now. With the carbon fiber tripod to support the lens and the camera and the gimbal head. Gimbal head is I don't have a picture, but you guys can Google it to find out what sort of head is that. And eventually I upgraded to Canon 5D Mark III, and then I sold the 500 f4, the first one, and I bought the version 2, which is lighter, and I think the image quality is better as well. And I also bought this ball head called Unique Ball. The reason I got this is because I'm doing both landscape and also wildlife. So I'm trying to get just one ball head to meet both criteria where I could use it on the both wildlife and also on the landscape. Especially when I travel, I just need to. I have some weight limitation over there. And eventually, I sold the 5D Mark III and upgraded to the 1DX Mark II, and also I bought another body. It's the 5D SR, and eventually I sold the Canon 1DX Mark II, and I bought the Sony A9, the 24-105 and 100 to 400 mm lens. But I sold the Sony equipment recently because I decided to stick back to Canon because last year they introduced the Canon R5, so I'm aiming to get that one pretty soon. Don't ask me about the money loss that I've transitioned when I started to now, because I just lost track of it.
It's a lot there, yeah.
Yeah, well, there are some that I managed to sell it for the money that I bought off, especially the 500 mm f4, the first one. I think I just bought it for a couple of months, and then when the Mark II came out, I just thought I'd just upgrade it and sold the one without sustaining any losses on that. All right, so my camera setup, I only do RAW, never JPEG, nothing at all. So occasionally I would do a C-RAW format, which is the in Canon, which is the lossless compression, and also obviously the files, you reduce the file size and ultimately increase the buffer in your camera, especially if you shoot the oh, sorry, hang on. Oh. Sorry, I had to move my cat.
You know that you have a cat. What is her name?
Yeah. Hey, sorry?
What is your cat name?
His name is Maru.
Maru.
Yeah. Right. Where are we? Okay. Can you still see my screen?
Not full screen.
Not full screen.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. Let me share it again.
Your case malu. What is it? Malu means shy in Bahasa.
No, not that. It's MARU, not L.
Oh, I wonder why you malu.
Give me a second. Yeah. Okay, and share my screen. Yeah. Okay, can you see it now?
Yeah, coming. Okay.
Okay, apologies for that. Right, let's continue. Or I only do raw, we talk about that. In terms of the metering mode, I use normally center weight metering mode. For me right now, is that everything is manual, apart from the autofocus, obviously. Obviously, you want to set it into a high speed frame rate because you never know what the animal does. Sometimes it just react and do stuff really within a couple of seconds, and then the bird is either the bird or the man will be just gone on just out of sight. So you have to be really aware of that. I normally use the center point in terms of the autofocus on my previous Canon and AI servo on the Canon as well. I think for the Sony, they call it multi-AF mode with animal tracking on the Sony system. I'm not sure about the new one though. So such as Olympus, I'm not sure what sort of a system they have. I can't remember. I never used Olympus before, so I don't know. And if you want, you could double check with either manual or I would just Google and find out. It's easier that way. Right. Let's move to the next one. What's the next one? Oh, and I always shoot with image stabilization on the lens. And if you have the in-body stabilization, then I suggest you to use that as well. Right, camera settings on the field. If it is a standstill subject, such as with the bird just sitting around posing to in front of you and doing literally nothing much at all, or even mammals, we could use a lower shutter speed. Ultimately, you could lower the ISO, and you could use a higher f-stop so to increase the depth of field. For moving subjects, obviously you want a higher shutter speed. It all depends on what sort of subject you shoot. Normally, I would go over 2,000 over second. Even though if you need to increase the ISO to achieve the highest shutter speed, then I suggest you to do so rather than having a blurred image. I'd rather have a higher noise image than a blurred image, which ultimately I would just delete completely. And also to achieve a higher shutter speed, you could lower your f-stop as well. If you're using the mirrorless, nowadays there's this silent mode, which ultimately use that because if you use the traditional DSLR, when the mirror flash, especially if you're using the Canon 1DX or the Nikon D6, with sometimes the noise will scare your subjects off. Turn on the IS on the lens if you have that, and also the in-body stabilization. However, the all above, depending on where you are, as I mentioned before, if you're in the open field, open land, so ultimately you get more light. You could use a lower ISO. You could increase the f-stop to increase your depth of field, and ultimately you could use a higher shutter speed. If you're shooting in the forest, most of the time you'll be in the shadow. So unfortunately, even though it says it's 12 o'clock, there's no with direct sunlight. You still have to use ISO 5,000, say for example, just to achieve your desired shutter speed. And also, if you shoot before sunrise or after sunset, which means you need to increase your ISO, or if you want to take a punt, use the lower shutter speed. Just play around with the settings and see whether you could achieve the result you want. But as for the beginner, I would go the highest as possible where you feel comfortable, and in order to achieve the shutter speed. And also it depends on the weather condition, obviously. If it is a rainy season, then you need waterproof gears, and also if it is a rainy season, then there will be a lower light, say for example, and then obviously you have to again increase your ISO to achieve the shutter speed that you need. In terms of the camera, I know that, or you may know that the latest camera are usually right now they have a very good ISO performance. Or ultimately, you could use the noise clear in Photoshop by default, or you could use the Noise Ninja or Topaz Noise AI, or etc., whichever the program that you have in your Photoshop. And also, when we're doing wildlife photography, we do a lot of crop in most of the time. So cropping may result in more visible noise because you're literally cropping into a smaller 10%. Sometimes I even crop into 5% if I need to, but there will be a rare occasion. Normally I crop at least about 50% or 70% into my image. And lastly, you need to be patient because photographing wildlife is not easy. I've been out waiting for 24 hours, 48 hours sitting around, and literally there's nothing show up. So it is a pretty much challenge, especially if you're in the direct sunlight when it's hot and you need to bring water, bring some snack with you. And if you're shooting in winter season, which is I don't know, -10 or something, then you need to be have a warm clothes, have your heating pads, whatever, get ready. And one thing I would like to mention as well is keep your phone in silent, because any noise, if the subject, if either mammals or birds hear any noise, they probably won't come back in many hours because of the noise that produced by the people is something that they never heard here in the wildlife before. So you may want to be aware of that. If you were photographing from a height, it's not that bad because you're literally within the height. The wildlife only can see into your lens and also within the opening that they could potentially see in. But most of the time, just be quiet most of the time. Because in the height, sometimes not only you were in the height, there are some other photographers in there as well. So just be a bit respectful when you're shooting in there. So let's move on to places to photograph. To start with, home gardens. It is probably one of the easiest one because it's comfort home. You don't have to wear your camouflage gear, whatever all you need to do is put some bird feeder in and keep feeding them on the same spot and watch the bird fly in and out, and ultimately you can learn where they're usually flying in from, either from your neighbors' fences, or even from the tree up on adjacent property. If you were confident enough, put some camouflage on, or even place it close enough to your window so you could shoot from your from your house. So ultimately your house is becoming your hide right now. Just to hide the shade ultimately.
Yeah.
So
how can I go out the house?
Well, you can go out to the house. It's up to you. You can either set up a little hide, like a blind or something. So you just want to hide your yourself, your figurine, because some of the birds, they are quite skittish. If you see some humans, they won't come in anyway. Even there are some birds that won't come in if they hear some unknown noise before. So it is pretty skittish. It all depends on what sort of subject you photograph. So the other thing is, you want to train yourself, you could go to the zoo, which means you could use whatever lenses that you have, even with a 70 to 200, because they basically are pretty close to you. And ultimately, you could wear whatever you like. And then forest, I would say maybe your local forest when you go out walking in the is it jungle you call it in Malaysia? I can't remember now. Anyway, yeah, you wear something green to so it blends in your camel clothes, and also ultimately those clothes that doesn't really produce noise when you're walking. You want something that is soft or cotton clothes. There are also some company that produce a specific camel gear that doesn't produce any noise, so you could venture into that as well. You could go to the rivers, but beware of crocs, obviously. You could put your yellow boots on, your waterproof sheet, so you could lay on the ground, you could sit on the ground if you want. Waterproof trousers or waders or salopas, which means sometimes you have to venture slightly into the shorelines where when you get wet, or even if you go barefoot. I suggest not to go barefoot because you don't know what you step on. So it's just something to keep you dry, really. You could also do it in river deltas, which means you need the same gear as previous before. Or you could go to nature reserves. Which one did I went? I think I went to one of them in Shah Alam. I can't remember the name now. It's pretty much open to walkers. You could go there and bring your lenses and walk around and see what you get. Generally, just wear something soft, dull color clothes or camel, as I mentioned before. Or you could go to your local ponds. I mean, ponds normally attracts a lot of birds, obviously, because there's a fish in there, and it attracts what's the bird called? I can't remember the bird call now. I'll come back to that. Or a huge longkang in Malaysia, maybe, because when I was back in Malaysia a couple of years ago, I saw this massive longkang, and I saw this variety of birds over there. I wanted to go down and photograph, but obviously I don't have time, so I have to skip that. But that's
those
just
are pigeon.
for you. Hey?
But those are pigeon, isn't it? I mean, those longkang one usually you'll find pigeon.
No, actually, I wouldn't say it's not your normal. It's a big. I think. What do you call it in English? Was it flash? It's a very big one. I think I can't remember where I saw it before. It is in one of the Seremban North South Highway to KL. I saw one of that, and I saw a lot of wildlife literally down in the longkang. They were picking up the worms or whatever they're picking up, and I really wanted to just stop the car and walk down there and photograph the birds, but you can't because it's in the motorway, in the highway. So yeah. And also try to find somewhere locals to you. It's a great place to practice and also get to know the birds, the species you want to photograph, and learn about their behavior. And also, all in all, you want the good accessibility where it's easier for you to go. You don't want to you want to go out to specific places then, which means you need to spend hours or even a full day. Sometimes you need to overnight or even arrive at the place at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and walk to these walk to the places and get you set up and wait for the birds to come in. So obviously, all what I mentioned as well is you want to make it cheap. If it is in your garden bird, so obviously you have to drive. That's cheap for you, and obviously less carbon footprint. So as I mentioned before, early bird gets the worm. So go early morning, normally before sunrise, arrive at the place, get this set up, and wait for the birds to come in. Don't go. Well, you still can go anytime you want, but normally. Go early in the morning before sunrise. When the bird comes in, you see different things, and ultimately, when you get a better light at the time, soft light, and then when you expose for the bird, you will expose for, including the surrounding as well. Everything is properly exposed, rather than having either blue sky shooting up to the sky, either blue sky or a white wash sky background. So that's normally what we all do. In the midday, I think in Malaysia, if you photograph in the jungle, it's a bit exceptional because the bird is still active. Over here in the UK, midday normally the wildlife they're having a nap or hide from the sun or the heat. So generally at that time we were having a rest a couple of hours before we head out again and photograph for the in the afternoon session. Yeah. So let's move on to. Oh, there's one last note that late afternoon. Yes, it's a yes. Go for it. If it is a very nice day, just sit around there and see what the nature brings you because it's always full of surprise. You don't know what you end up you end up seeing. Right. So the next one, budgets. It's pretty subjective. It depends. I would say it depends on your commitment. What sort of image quality you're aftering. If you want to go for a budget or a starter, I would say maybe get a Canon or a Sony 100 to 400 mil, or a Sony 100 to 400 and the 200 to 600 mil from Sony, or any third-party lens such as Sigma or Tamron, which right now they offer really good quality from 150 mil to 600 mil. That covers a lot, I would say. But the downside of this lens is the f-stop. All of these lenses start from at least f4, I would say, or f4.5, and then ultimately if you go up to 400 mil or 600 mil, you could go up to f5.6 or even f8. Now, if you are really committed to it, you want the ultimate, get the pro telephoto lens such as 400 mil, 500 mil, 600 mil, and the 800 mil, which is exceptional. I think Canon only does it right now, if I'm not mistaken. And these are all really expensive. They are heavy and they're huge, but they give you the ultimate quality for the wildlife. So, do you guys have any questions so far? Before we jump to the next one.
A question from Juan. He asking if not using auto ISO and aperture mode regarding very previous from Guan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
all right. I don't use auto ISO because because I never use auto ISO. Let's put it this way, because at the time when I started, auto ISO is not even an invention at the time. So I used the aperture mode for the start. Yes, you could use that, or you could use the shutter speed mode if you want to. But ultimately, when you're in the setting, if the light isn't changed a lot, once you got your setup done, and once you got your setup right, ultimately you just fire away and fingers crossed your what do they call it in Cantonese? The AF, right? It needs to be hit. That's the ultimate. The rest of it is kind of like secondary, but it's equally important as well. Don't get me wrong. So normally what I do is when I arrive at the scene, I look at the weather. All right, if the weather will be pretty much similar for an hour or so, I will do a setup, get my expose ready, and then once that's set up, and then all I need to do is just wait for the bird to come in and then aim for it and shoot off, and that's all I do. And if the light changes every time, I do encounter it. The light changes, so and if I were on the position, I will either adjust the shutter speed, so I allow maybe slightly higher ISO, increase my shutter speed, so I could just use the shutter speed to reduce it or increase it whenever the light comes in or goes away. I normally set the aperture fixed into f4, f5.6, or f8 sometimes, but normally I just stick it to f4 on my 500 mil. ISO, I would touch it only if the light changes really dramatically. Otherwise, it would be just the shutter speed I would adjust. And that's pretty much it, really.
One, is it okay for the answer? Okay.
But as a beginner, I would say just go, if you're not comfortable, always go for auto. I suggest you start with aperture mode, so you could adjust your aperture wherever you want to. Yes, let's start from there, and then when you start learning thinking, you start shooting it, you gain experience. Then ultimately you will know. On some scenario, if you just compute in your head, what sort of f-stop you need to use, what sort of shutter speed you need to use given the circumstances. You whether want to shoot a bird in flight, or if the subject moving, or if they're sitting still, or depending on the weather as well. So all of these are. It depends on if you are on the where you are at the time. Okay, is that okay, Kwan? Cool. All right, let's move on. Right, compositions. Rule of thirds is pretty much the same as the landscape. And then subject entering the frame, which means you get the subject that comes flying directly into your lens. Well, make sure the eye is in focus. That's the ultimate. Subject isolation. Subject isolation means you could either crop into the subject and show the eyes in focus, the details of the feather, the colors of it, and framing. What's the last one? Right, the last one I think is lying on the subject, which means what I mean is you lay on the ground to get level on your subject. You don't. I will talk about the one of the mistake later. However, all the rules are made to be broken. It's all up to you how you decide to shoot. Right. I will show the next. I will show you some of my image. So rule of third. Obviously, you put the subject into the on the third of the image. It could be the left, right, or even at the top, or even at the bottom, right, or over here. So the first one I would like to say is this is the pheasant. I'm not sure whether you get the similar pheasant in Malaysia. I think you get pretty much similar, but it is slightly different. And on the right is the puffin. The puffin is when they are photographed. I think a photograph is somewhere in May, and they just arrived from Africa, and they started building the nest, waiting for their partner to arrive. And then this is snow bunting, and I think you can only get this in Canada, Scandinavian, where I think somewhere in Russia as well. I think you will get this species thrive there. And osprey in the UK, they are migrant bird. They in the winter time they will fly back to Africa, so but some of the ospreys, they are local. I think the locals one are in Florida. Those are the locals. They will be they will breed and still stay in the same place throughout the year. So those are the rules of third. So on the next slide is subject entering the frame. So we got on the left here, this is gannet. This is also a migrant bird. I photographed this in Ireland, and the bird flying in from the sea, entering. I think the bird will have to land into one of the nests underneath there among the crowds there. On the right is the kestrel. This bird is local. They don't migrate, so they will stay there throughout the summer and the winter time. Yeah, and show the next one.
Yeah.
Next one is
Robin.
Sorry.
When you mentioned when you mentioned entering the frame means the bird is flying towards us. Is that what you mentioned?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, the bird flying towards us. Yes. So eyes in focus, you want to make whenever we shoot the wildlife, the first thing is when you shoot a couple of frames, you want to check whether the eyes in focus. If the eyes not in focus, you want to keep shooting again before the birds or the subject fly off. I think I might show you later, because what I did was I could show you 100% crop to show you the eyes are in focus on these two birds. The one on the left is, if you interested, this is little owl, and they are local species in the UK. The one on the right is golden eagle. I photographed this in Sweden in winter time, and they are local over there. They are local species. They don't migrate. All right, let's move to the next one. Subject isolation. Subject isolation means you want. This is what I'm trying to show you is you crop into it, and either you crop into it or you get close to your subject as much as possible without spooking them off, to show them the profile details, the feather details, the color details, the eyes. Everything is in focus. The one on the left is a common. The one on the top left and the top right is common kingfisher. You get the same species in Malaysia. So the left, where you can see this orange beak, this is the female, indicating the female, and on the right, if you is the male, where the beak is fully black. This is the male, and then on the left hand side, bottom left hand side, this is the puffin. I shot this in, was it f/22, 1/8,000 of a second, just to get this black frame. Because I think I shoot this in about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was sun shining, and I managed to get this sort of picture that I wanted. It's just showing, obviously, the bird itself, the beak, and nothing around it. Just like something, just like a portrait that you shoot in the studio. And then the one on the right is the gander again. This is where they, this is their ritual, mating ritual, when the partner flew back, and then they would greet themselves by preening the partners each other. So I managed to get quite close to them with my 500 mil. I think this one I have 1.4 teleconverter attached to my to my camera as well, to get more close to the bird. Right. So the next one is the framing. The one on the left, the top and the bottom is the highway. I think it's the highway guard or the rail, where I use that as the subject framing to photograph these two. I think this is, sorry. I think this is, I can't remember what turn it is. I can't remember now. This is a local bird in Florida. And on the right, this is the barn owl. I think you get the same species in Malaysia.
Yep.
I photographed this in the, it's a high setup, and I photographed this using 2 flashes, and I have my camera set up level to the entrance where the barn owl will be, and obviously I'm sitting quite close to it underneath my camera, using the remote shutter to trigger this shutter. Sorry. And I'm using this entrance, all this barn frame as the frame to the barn owl.
Yeah, very nice, very nicely composed. Yeah, but you mentioned that you use 2 flashes. Is it? Are they not frighten the birds?
Let's put it this way: the bird kind of used to it, to the flash. Yep. Because this is one of the paid high that I went for. So I paid a fee You go there and then you do the setup, and then don't get me wrong, the bird is still a wildlife species. It's not what do you call that? It's not hand feed or anything like that.
Yep.
Question from Juan.
Oh, okay.
He asking you using which mode is you using for this type of shot? Single AF, continue AF?
Which shot? The one, the bar now.
I think this all those shot for this birding photography. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much whether it's flying or it's a still bird, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, all of this is continuous shutter, continuous AF or AI servo.
For the multi-focusing point, you use it.
I think I use a single point because I was using a Canon 5D Mark III. Between Canon 5D Mark III, the 1DX and the 5DSR, between these three, the best AF, unfortunately, is the center point. So that's all I use. So what I do is I use the back. I separate the shutter and also the focusing. The focusing, I use the back button for focusing, and then the shutter is the trigger button. So for a lot of the shots, if the subject doesn't move, what I do is I focus on the eye and then I recompose it and then press the shutter again. So it doesn't focus. So I have those two separate.
Okay.
And then move on to the next one. These two is everything is fast shutter speed, probably really high ISO as well. Multi-focus or AI servo, which are depending on which camera you use. The next one, I believe I also use the fast shutter speed, the highest shutter speed you could get from the camera. Pretty high ISO, continuous AF, and high shutter speed. Yeah, I think I mentioned that, sorry. So the next one, the next one is pretty much the same. A lot of the shots are the same. I just everything the fastest as possible, because a lot of the wildlife, birds, mammals, whatever, when they don't really sit around a lot. Sometimes they just sit around for like 5-10 minutes. That is quite rare, I would say. Also depending on the subject. A lot of them, they just come in, feed, and then they will fly off within a minute or even 20 seconds. I have a couple of occasions where when I was sitting in the hide, because it was quite a long day for me, I literally dozed off like I was sleeping, and a couple of my mates, they were firing away, and I missed a couple of shots. The bird just came in, they fired the shot, and then the bird flew off, and I completely missed it. I don't even know what bird came in. And then in the end, they just laughing. Oh, you're sleeping. You missed it. So, yeah.
Actually, Robin, if you just go back to the previous slide.
Yeah.
And okay, I noticed that all your background are pretty clean, and and actually just one plain color. How do you achieve that? Actually, maybe some of us want to know how you achieve that.
It depends on I'll probably will discuss this later in the slide. If you, how do I want to put it? These backgrounds are easy achievable. Yeah, provided your background is far away from your subject, like they have a massive distance, and if you're using a telephoto lens, and if you are quite close to the bird, where you get essentially the subject is pretty much filled out on your frame, and then the background will naturally blur away. But obviously, all of these photos are taken with my 500mm f4, So I will use the f4 to achieve a maximum blur background. If you use the zoom lenses such as the 150 to 600 mil, you will need the background will be more in focus because there will be like f8 or f6.3 or even f11 in some cases. And sorry.
No, I mean that the birds usually, it will actually stand on some, we will just stand on the trees, and then there's got a lot of leaf behind or near to the bird, and I guess it's difficult to get a distance that you will probably gonna get a complete blur of background.
Yes. Yes. If you shoot in the jungle, if you're shooting, if the birds, flying, they will be going around all these perches, the trees.
Yeah.
In that case, unfortunately, it's pretty hard to get the clean black background unless how to achieve that. It will come down to the skill craft. They put it this way. So what a lot of wildlife photographers do, they'll bring the bait, worms, whatever. They will put it aside, like try to bait the bird to come in, and so for them to eat it, and then you will see either low ground or high ground, or you could put it behind one of the perches and hoping them to come in. So you will photograph on that spot only, and then ultimately you can adjust your background. You could either move to the side. You could adjust the perches. You want to move further away or closer to you. But if you want to do that, you need some sort of hide. You need to hide yourself. But there are some birds. It's a wild bird, but they're quite used to human feeding. Yeah, if you feed them, they will quite oblige and come quite close to you as long as there's a reward.
Yep.
Yeah. Just give me 2 seconds.
What? You gonna chase your cat again?
I heard something drop. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's just a matter of luck,
It's a combination of luck.
Yes, I agree.
Sorry.
I agree.
Yeah, it's a combination, and also you need to know where to find them as well. And I believe in Malaysia there are some blogs where they will share the location. A lot of people, they don't share location because of, obviously, if it is a rare bird, they don't want to share it out, and because a lot of the not only the bird photographer, you get the twitcher, which is the people that just want to get their binocular to see the birds. It will just swarm the place up, and I've been there before, and I can understand why some people, they just conceal the location. Or ultimately, you could. I think in Malaysia there are a couple of quite a famous bird guider, so they would take you to a few spots, like in jungle or wherever, to photograph the species that you want. I've been to a couple before, but that is many years now.
Yep.
Yeah. So the next one. Right, the barn owl. I think I'll talk about the barn. I think the barn owl only use ISO 800. I think because I've got 2 flashes that control my the lighting, and I use the setting for that. Did I use multi? No, I think I just used a single. No AF. What I did was I pre-focused to this opening area. So when the bird flies in, I just press the shutter and just fire away, basically. So
the barn owl looks interesting. As though that she's leaning towards the window, was it?
Sorry, yeah.
I mean, the barn owl looks like it's leaning towards the windows. She's standing and lean towards the window. Yeah.
I think what the barn owl did at the time is the barn owl was curious about the camera noise. The camera noise, so he was like looking at it. So he was switching around like that. Yeah. So the next one is you want to lying down on your stomach. You want to be as slow as possible, like into the eye level of your subject.
Wow.
Which means you have to either lay on the ground or sitting on the ground, whichever that you feel comfortable. So on the left is a combination of you sit low to the ground. I think this one I use, was it four flash to get this shot?
Which one? The bird one?
The one on the left, yeah, the heron.
Left. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Four flashes.
Yeah, 4 flashes. Everything is already pre-set up. So what I did on this high is I actually waited. I actually kept awake throughout the night. I think I got this shot at about 3 o'clock in the morning.
Wow. 3 o'clock with the flash. Okay.
Yeah, it's all about dedication. And then the one on the right is I photographed this in one of the famous park called Richmond Park in London. In a couple of months' time, I think it's in October. It's their rutting season, which means it's their mating season. So you get the stag. They will make a lot of noise. They will make a lot of they are really active around the females. So it's one of the best times to photograph them. And for this shot, I think I was sitting on the ground with my 500mm. I was hand holding it because you just don't know what you encounter. So most of the time, I just hold my camera. If I see something, I just point it and fire it off. Yeah, and this is, what time is it? It is probably 7 o'clock in the morning or 5:30 in the morning. So you get the sunrise just rise on the right hand side, and you get the nice side light, and also on the background you get the golden tree at the background, and also the mist in the background. Yeah.
And it's an autumn at that point, yeah.
It started to autumn, yeah. The cut, the
color tone just blend nicely with the color tone just blend nicely.
Yeah, I'll probably will go back there again this year in October. So I'll discuss a bit of the common mistakes. So the first one is the shallow depth of field. Now, if you are shooting at a very shallow depth of field or widest aperture within your lens, sometimes you may find the parts of your subject are out of focus, especially if you're shooting an image of a bird that's facing you, right? The subject is quite close to you. You find the beak is out of focus because the closer the subject to you, the smaller the depth of field it will be. So you eventually will have to adjust your aperture accordingly just to get most of your subject in focus. And the second one, failure to review images. When you are trying to take as many images as possible, it is very easy to forget to review your images and check for any mistakes, such as is your exposure correct? Did you overexpose your subject or did you underexpose it? And just quick check. If you need to adjust, quickly adjust it and then start shooting again. And then the third one, this is a really common, not ready to press the shutter. It's pretty much common in the bird photography, because when the bird's sitting around, they will just look around and then within a snapshot, they'll just fly away. And this is where your experience comes in. Depending on what sort of a subject, as I mentioned before, some of the birds, they will poop before they fly off. So if you see the bird poop, which means you need to get ready because the bird will start flying off.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit strange. So I learned that when I was out in the nature reserve, among the photographers, you just talk about stuff, and then they know that you're quite new to the field, and then they will tell you a bit of a tips and tricks, and then you just learn from that and gain from experience. Yeah. The fourth one, which is the wrong exposure for the subject, which is pretty much related to the number 2 that I mentioned earlier. So ensure you review your images. The first protocol is make sure your subject is properly exposed. No, even the background is overexposed, I don't care. I just want to make sure that my subject is properly exposed. Depends on the bird. Some of the birds, they have really wide feather, so you want to expose for the wide feather. And then some birds, such as crows, they have the really dark, black or dark feather, so you need to reduce your shutter speed to expose for the dark. Motion blur. Now, animals often move quickly, so you can regularly find motion blur in your images if you aren't careful about your shutter speed. So don't be scared to increase your ISO value if you need to achieve a faster shutter speed. I mentioned earlier, a noisy image is better than a complete blur one. So always review your images, make sure they are sharp, make sure that if it is a really tiny movement on the bird wing, it's still acceptable. But if it is completely, it all depends on what sort of some people like to use that as an art, which is acceptable as well. So number 6, beware of the background. If you are photographing in nature reserve, sometimes you do get people walking right behind on the background, so you just want to be aware of that. But for me, if you photograph it, for me it's okay, because in Photoshop right now you could just use the content away to you could easily take it away. But sometimes it's pretty hard to take it off. It all depends on your image. So the 7th, not watching your surroundings. Don't let your attention become focused in one specific area for too long. Make sure you are wary of what's going on around you as well, because sometimes, because if you're too focused on one end, on one subject, sometimes the happening is just right beside it. You could miss the opportunity to get maybe once in your lifetime shot. And also, I would say if you're photographing with your mates, with a couple of photographers, just watch them and see where they're looking at. Sometimes they will give tips for you and say, oh, they will give a shot. Oh, there's something coming on your right, and then you just look at the right, and aim for that, and fire away. Patience, not patience. This is pretty much one of the skills that you need to have. I think I mentioned that before. You could wait 10 minutes, you could wait hours, you could wait half a day, you could wait even a day or 2 days, and there's nothing show up in front of the lens. Serious, I've been there before, and it's unfortunate. It's one of the games that we have to endure. But then don't give up, because you just don't know what's around the corner. I have a couple of occasions where when I left, a couple of photographs that they stayed behind. 10 minutes later, they got the shot. They just text you, oh, I got the shot, you missed it. And I was just filming, and I have to, I have no choice but just to come another day.
Robin, how would you know that that particular birds that you're looking for would actually come to that particular tree during that particular time? How would you know this? I mean, this kind of information.
The birds need to feed. First of all, the bird needs to feed. Yeah, okay. They will come out in the morning, feed, and then probably about 11ish, they will just nap off, or they will be quiet. That you won't see them. They will be somewhere around, perching somewhere just to get out of the heat. And then by 4 or 5 o'clock, depending on where you are, they'll come back and feed another round before they rooster for the day, for the next day. And
I see.
for the species, if you go to the nature reserve, there are some common species in there, and also there are some migrant species or even some rare species that arrive. All you need to do is just look at the website and see what the nature reserve are. People are photographing or people mentioning. A lot of the bird watcher, they will do like a few. They will make a note of what they saw during the day. So using that data, if you want to photograph, say, I don't know, a hen harrier, say for example, all right, we will Google it. Which nature reserve which nature reserve have them? If you found one, then just drive there. If it is a pretty much close distance, just go there and fingers crossed, and let's see what your luck brings you. There are some comments. Sorry.
Yeah. Do you normally play some music to attract the birds towards you, or?
There are people did that, but I have done that before. That was yes, I have done that before. Yes, we did that. It's been pretty much successful. Yes. Yes, you could use that. Yeah, that's one of the tricks as well. But then you don't use too much, because the bird, if you use too much, the bird will know. They will not, they will not come in again. You just use a couple of times, you get the shot, and then stop. You have to move on. You can't just use that every day or every single time, because they'll know eventually.
Same song every day.
The calling is pretty much the same, but I don't know. Maybe they could.
The birds just get bored, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, I think the bait, the food is still the best.
Do they look for certain host trees to stay or pledge on their nest or anything? Are they selective?
Most of them are not selective. No. No.
Okay.
No, not selective. No, but if it depends on If you photograph shorebirds, then it will be pretty selective. Some of the birds, they only breed on the rocky beach.
Or that will be the area rather than the host lah. It will be the area depending lah. Like shorebirds, like the Arctic terns and nets, they will be near to the shore. More like the area.
The Arctic terns, they breed near the shore among the puffins, and also what was the other bird called? I can't remember. They are the common seabirds. They normally breed in the same place. Yes.
Understand. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Pretty much number 9. Let's try something different. Similar posing subject gets boring. If you are beginner, then yes, just fire away. But for me right now, I don't really photograph bird. We call it bird on stage. Let's put it this way. If it is a bird that I never photographed before, then yes, I would like to have for my record. But once it's done, then you want to move on to something else, and you try to be creative. Play with the light and color, which is sunrise and the sunset, and see what the light brings you. And think across the bird will flew to the path to the area that you want the bird in. Again, it's all pure luck. See, look at the subject. Look at the subject. What observe what they're doing. Sometimes they if they are in the mating season, they were courting each other and see what they're doing, fighting, fighting for the fish, say for example. Photograph those. Those are interesting. Now, blur the motion, panning. This is where this is the purposely blurred moving subject, where the subject are pretty much in focus, or it could be blurred, but the background, everything is moving, so you get like a frame, blur frame around the subject which is in focus, or create a new viewpoint. The new viewpoint, which I'll explain it on my on the photographs that I'm going to show you right now. So this one, play with light and color. This is the sunrise. I went to Japan to photograph. This is called Stellar Eagle. So the first one, you get the sunrise coming out. For this image, I think I've exposed to the environment, and then I use the Photoshop to bring back out the shadow a bit, just to give it more details on the bird, and still maintaining the color and also the sunrise and the background. And then on the right, you get on the top right, you get, I think the sun is pretty much up, but because of the lighting itself, and you still get a bit of golden light on the golden light on the background and on the foreground as well. And obviously, I put this one into shit, I'm frozen. Can you still hear me? Hello? Yeah?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, cool. Sorry. This is the rule of third. I put the bird, because I know the bird will fly from left to the right, so I purposely bring the subject to the left, so I get the rule of third frame. And then the bottom right, this is a pretty good one. You get the sunrise just shining towards the bird in flight, and with the mountain in the background, which is kind of golden color as well. But the main focus is on the bird, which is, the light is the main focus on the bird. I think this is quite lucky. I've got this shot.
Robin,
yeah.
Question from Andy. Andy, bird in flight, do you use burst shooting or single shot?
Bird in flight, always burst. Always.
Burst. Okay.
Yeah, always burst.
Okay.
Yeah. So subject interactions. Subject interaction. So the first one, the puffin on the left-hand side, top left, the two puffins are courting each other. They're greeting each other because they, this is early in the season. The partner came back because these birds are partners for life. So when they flew back, they would greet themselves, like preening themselves. This is where I'm capturing the interaction between those two birds. It is the same as the gannets on the top right-hand side. This is the courting ritual, where I don't know what the bird's doing, but this is the part of their courting ritual. I managed to capture this. And how do I get this shot? I pretty much lay on the ground just to get this shot, because on the foreground here is I think it's a combination of rocks and also the birds as well. This is one of the continents that I went in Ireland to photograph this. So I need to lower myself on the ground so I get the blur foreground and also the blue sky in the background. On the bottom left, this one, I photographed this in July. This is where this is Arctic tern. So they bring the meal back to the little chick over on the left here. And for this shot, I think I put the camera on the ground and just fire away. And I was putting my finger crossed that I get the shot, and ultimately I got this one, which is lucky. And then on the bottom right, you get to see a stellar eagle. They were fighting amongst themselves for the fish. So I managed to capture this using a high shutter frame rate, just to freeze the motion and everything, and also get to see the snow dust that they're fighting. It's all everywhere. So let's move on to the next slide. I think this is the panning shot. So on the left, I did this on these two shots. I did it on purpose. Oh, sorry. These two shots I did it on purpose. I want to get the panning shot. So the first one is you get to see the wing itself blurred, blurred from the motion. But I got the head is pretty much in focus. And then on the right, it's the flying puffin. Even though the puffin are not in focus, but for the keen eye, when we look at it, we know that it is a puffin in flight. So this is a bit of artistic. Again, this is a kind of a mama shot. Some people like it and some don't, but I like it, so it works for me. The next one, new viewpoint. Now, the one on the left, this is a pair of barnal. I photographed this about midnight, I believe, with two flash guns on both on the left and the right, and I think I'm using only single shutter or single AF to get it. Again, it's you have to look around and see what they're doing. Sometimes they come in and go straight into the nest. And for this shot, I was quite lucky. One of them standing at the door where they flew in, another one standing on the roof. They were pretty much looking at me because what I did was I was making a bit of noise so that I have their headlight turning on me, and then I get a shot of this.
Robin? Hi, Jeffrey. For this picture, you mentioned that you use AF, so I assume there is a bit of light on the bricks that you're able to focus on it. Because if it's in the dark, how are you going to AF?
There is a
atmosphere light. There's some light.
There is another light. There is another floodlight that on the opening there, so it allows you to focus if you need to.
Okay.
What I did was when I focus on the brake, I pretty much stay there. I don't really move anyway, so I don't really need the continuous autofocus.
Understand.
Yeah. And then on the top middle, this is the pony out. I think you can only get this in the UK and in the Europe. I think I use a 16 to 35. It's a wide angle lens. I place it in front of the bait. This is only with one flash. I have two set up, but the other one, the battery ran out. So I only fire when you fire, it's only one that gone off. And this one, I waited 6 hours to get this shot, and this is the only shot that I get. Only one shot. Only one shot. Sit there. I think it was like -5. So sitting around is cold. I was freezing, and the guy shot a couple of times, but I didn't get the shot. But this is the only shot that I get. Only one shot that I get. And
AF as well. AF.
No, this is pre-focus.
Okay.
Pre-focus. Everything pre-focus. Yeah. And then middle bottom in the middle. Oh, sorry. This is the I use a 24 to 70 for this lens. The bird is probably about 3, 4, 6 feet away from me, and I can get pretty close to them. Obviously, it was a sunset behind them, and I managed to get this shot that I quite like. The wide angle shot showing the habitat. This is the burrowing ground is on the bottom right there. That's their burrowing ground, and the bird kind of like posing for me, and I got this shot, which is I'm glad that I got it.
Very nice. I love this one.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I really love those puffin. Seriously, the puffin is just beautiful.
Yeah, and
so which one can we have this puffin in the UK? You mentioned it's the northern part of UK. You could actually get puffin.
No, the puffin is there are a couple of breeding grounds.
Some more.
One of them you can find it in Wales,
Scotland.
Scone Island, and then you can find it in Farne Islands. You can find it in Scotland. There are a couple of natural reserves that you could go there. Obviously, you need to pay for the entrance fee to photograph these birds.
Go zoo, Michael. We go zoo. Go Singapore zoo.
You get that? I don't think
Singapore doesn't have this puffin. Do we have this
You don't
puffin?
Oh, just one more thing. The puffin beak is colorful during their breeding season. When it is off breeding season, it will be like grayish.
Yes, dark green. Yes.
Yeah.
But they stay near the cliffs, right? They stay very near to the cliff. Is that right?
Yeah, they breed near the cliff. Yeah, some of the puffins you can't really get close because they are right in the cliff. It's a bit unfortunate. But this is an island. This island is a nature reserve in Wales, and this island is a nature reserve, and their purpose is for this bird. It is their breeding ground. It's protected, so they allow.
Nice.
Really nice, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a boat charter about half an hour away. Boat charter, they take you to island, and you could just photograph it. But if you go for the day, you won't get this shot. You need to go. You need to stay over in the island, so you could get the sunrise and the sunset shots.
So,
let's go.
Let's go.
That's why it's a very beautiful bird. It's like, look, but it's not like a duck.
They are very they are known for their loyalty to their parents. They take care of the child. They are very famous for being lovers till the end of their life. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
very loyal.
Well, most of the birds are pretty much the same. When they raise the bird, when they reach their juvenile and they can feed for themselves, and then at that time they will say goodbye to their parents, and then they will be on their own.
Yeah. Lovely.
So let's move on to the top right. Now you see, I think you can barely see. There's two little dots on the middle there. I think this is some sort of I can't remember. Is that a duck or merganser? Is part of the duck family. I think I used a 50mm lens for this shot. This is photographing the condition at that time. It was foggy.
Are they flying on the lake?
They are on the lake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're on the lake. I saw for there's pretty much wildlife photography, and then you're showing the conditions, the surrounding habitat of the ducks.
I thought sensor dirty. Sorry, just be a joker.
No, that's fine. And then lastly is this is the big breeding ground for the gannets. For this shot, I use a 24-70. I use a wide angle lens, 24mm. I attach it to the tripod. I couldn't get too close to them because they're not used to it. So I attach it to the tripod, extend the legs, and then use the tripod to get close to the bird. And then I use the remote to fire it off. So hopefully I get some shots, and I managed to get this one. And I'm quite pleased about that because it's different from the regular shots that I show you previously. So I'll show you the other viewpoint. It's pretty much the same. This is in Canada. I went there to photograph the snowy owl. So the one on the left, the bird is pretty far away. I think I used a 100-400mm lens with 400 to 400mm lens to get this shot. I want to get the background where it shows the trees, the conditions, and also the barn on the background on the right hand side as well. And then the image on the right, this is represent the true condition that we're photographing in. Snowing -15. Visibility sometimes 10 feet, sometimes none. The birds will still be there, and you can see the snow owl perching right on top of this pole.
So
on the first pole.
Robin, this type of composition, do you classify them as fine art, in wildlife? Or how do you classify? classify this kind of composition. Yeah.
Sorry,
Strict
classify as wildlife, did you say?
No,
To classify as a
fine
fine art.
abstract in
Obviously,
wildlife
maybe
photography.
abstract. It's just rather than keep using your telephoto lens to shot the bird, just the bird itself. You want to include the condition where the
Which
bird
is what was
are,
with
the habitat. How they.
Street photography, street photography.
Come photography. Come to my trip, and then I could show you around.
All right.
So, and then right, lastly, we all, when you go photograph anywhere in the world, leave no trace. If you have, bottle of water, anything, just bring them with you. And respect the nature and the people around you. Be aware of the laws or bylaws when photographing protected species. We get the feel over in the UK, especially if you want to photograph the kingfisher, you need some of the license if you want to do commercially, and you have to pay, obviously. If you photograph in the field or someone else's land, you want to double check, are you trespassing? If you are, then if it's a private land, if it is, then you want to get the permission first before you step into someone else's land. If you are in the Scotland, you are free to roam. It's no issues. But if you are in the UK and I believe in Wales as well, then you need to get the permission. Yeah. And yeah, that's it for me. Thank you very much for listening. And
Wow.
for your questions,
Nice
by the way.
Yeah. Okay, guys, any question for this Master Robin Lee? It's been wildlife for quite some time.
Robin, question from Juan just now regarding the mistake or any the first mistake is the shallow depth of field. What aperture recommended to use?
It all depends.
Is 5.6, okay?
If you are to photograph the portrait, which is kind of like the head and the shoulder, I would probably go at least f8 if you can.
Okay.
Sometimes I even go to f11. It's pretty rare.
Also depends on what system you're using, full frame or APS-C or smaller sensor.
Yes, that too. And also, if you photograph, obviously, if the bird look at you, you want to know whether the beak is 2 feet long or was it a small beak. That comes into equation as well.
Okay.
Yeah. If you photograph small bird, like the garden bird, the tiny teensy one, normally you should get away with 5.6 or f4, even f5.6. Everything will be in focus. But if the bird are really close to you, then obviously you need to increase your aperture.
I can add in one more. People tend to forget about their MFD, minimum focus distance. When they saw the bird close to them, they are so excited, then they forgot about the MFD, and then they have to last minute take that back.
If I were on the field, if they were too close, I'll probably won't move, because if I move, I will scare the bird away. It won't come back then. I will just leave it and let it do their thing, and then hopefully you'll just do a few step back so you could get to your MFD, and then you could do yeah. The last thing is you want to do is scare the bird, because there are some birds that if you spook them, once you spook that, they literally won't come back for weeks. Sometimes they won't come back until the next season.
Oh, so it
is like
prepare a handphone.
Subject.
Prepare a handphone.
Yeah.
No trouble.
Yeah. Unless you keep feeding them, the bird. If you keep feeding the bird on the same spot, they will know where the food are. So even though you make a bit of noise, they won't really bother too much, because they know there's a reward there for them.
Okay.
Robin, I've got a question.
Yeah.
Just now there were instances that you said that you were using the flashes.
Yeah.
All right. Some of the wildlife enthusiasts actually ban you from using flashes. We used to do a little bit of
Yes.
macro and flashes and all this.
Yep.
We've got quite of.
It's prohibited.
Well, they even prohibit you to use
what's the stand? What's the
flash.
Yeah.
It's
What's the stand on this?
It's it swings both ways. In the UK, it swings both ways. Some of them are really like a Bible. You can't use this. You can't do that. Some of them they you might get away. For those shots that I use the flash, those are backup shots, which means I pay this photographer to use their height to get those shots. So everything's already been set up. All I need to do is just pay, go to the height, and hopefully the bird turn up, and then you photograph them. In Malaysia, yes, I know in Malaysia they are really, really, really hard on people using flash. I think I went to, I can't remember this place, somewhere in Selangor, to photograph. I can't remember. It's one of the kingfisher. It's in the jungle. I was with one of my friends. He took me over there, and I asked him, "Do you mind if I use the flash? It's too dark." He doesn't mind because he understands where I come from. So I just put the flash gun and then I fire away. I only get the few shots and then I walk off. If you use it too much, obviously, it will affect. I believe it will affect some of the birds. Yeah, and ultimately, I get some wildlife photographers that walk around. They saw me using flash, so I thought, okay, I think it's time to go. So I just pack up and go because I only got my shot anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So you just want to be aware. Some people are really anal about it. Are there any more questions? Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Pat Bok Kang asking about you're using A7R2. Best thing for wildlife photography. Oh, okay. Burst, continuous AF. If you need to increase ISO 5000, just go for it. Don't be scared.
Sony A1.
A1.
Oh, wow. I don't need to say, just put into animal tracking and be done with it.
Yeah, I don't use it as well.
It's just too easy, I guess.
Actually, the Sony A1, the Canon R5, I think, I'm not sure about Panasonic though, and Olympus with the animal tracking system, the new AI system is really help to get the bird in flight shot in focus. Because
I did try the R5, the A9, and the A1. It's fantastic. Their tracking is like a group of bees following the bird. It's just effortless. It's scary. It's so scary.
Yeah, that's why I sold my 1DX too, and then I bought the Sony A9 because I know the AF is fantastic. I use that for probably 2 years, and then when the R5 come out, I decided.
R5 is a killer. R5 is good.
Yeah,
R5 is good.
Yeah. Well, it's not cheap even for me.
Understand?
Yeah. So that's I'm going to get that before I go and photograph again. I got actually I might have a trip to Japan next year.
Did you manage to shoot a Japanese crane when you go to Japan winter?
Yes. I don't think it's on my slide. Yeah.
Because you shot the sea stellar eagle, so I assume you should be able to shoot the Japanese cranes as well. It's around that season. Yeah, more sunrise.
Yeah,
sunrise, beautiful.
Yeah. Sounds like you've been there, yeah?
Yeah, but I got accident, so I couldn't shoot a crane.
All right.
We were driving, yeah, we were driving and then it spin out of control the car. Look at the accident. Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
Yeah.
Brr.
So anyone wants to join me next year? Yeah, you're welcome to. Just let me know.
I miss the
But
shepherd pie.
this is my start already because I'm doing the wildlife workshop with another guy. Two of us are living in Japan to do all this bird photography.
hmm.
Yeah.
Also,
But
you all have
depending-
contact in Japan. You all have contact in Japan.
I don't.
He has got a mate in Japan. Yeah.
No, I don't have any contact in Japan. When I went last year, that was before the COVID cases rises. No, actually, it's already rising in Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, China on the area. So I went by myself. I went to Japan by myself, and yeah, I just drive around and still manage to photograph stuff.
Where is taken, if I may know?
Sorry?
Is it Hokkaido? Where are the
Yes,
Hokkaido, right?
yes.
It looks like Hokkaido to me. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it is Hokkaido. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. NBU.
No, don't be. We all can do it.
Okay, guys, any more questions for Robin? If no, I think it's about time to end the session. Now it's time
Thank you, Robin.
in Malaysia. So,
Yep.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you. It's an experience.
Yep. Okay, so next
problem.
week we have Harley. No, is it Harley next week? Howard?
Yeah, next week.
Yes. Okay.
4th
Next week,
4th of September.
yeah, 4th of September. Yeah. So we have Harley next week. Share with us. I think it's all about portraitures and photos. We're going to editing and photo manipulations. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very interesting session. Hope you guys going to join us. Yeah, next week.
I will be saying
Hi, Harley. Harley there. Yeah.
okay.
All right. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Good night,
Robin.
yeah.
No, thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
See you guys
No
next week.
screenshot,
Okay.
Free shot.
Screenshot.
Bye bye.